Get all the participants in. Okay, I think we are about ready. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation of expungement of criminal records. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. But also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, our presenting partner, the Earl Carl Institute, and presenting today, we have Ms. Pamela Williams, who's going to be providing the information for you guys today. But also included in the partnership, we have the Texas Legal Services Center, Houston Bar Association, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Lone Star Legal Aid, the Harris Central Appraisal District, and the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. And together we all make up a month of service. And basically what a month of service is the collaboration of all 9 of our organizations coming together on a monthly basis and offering a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to the community relative to community empowerment, asset building, asset protection, and the maintaining of generational wealth. We know that there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there that do not have access to a lot of information, that do not know where to go for particular resources or services that are available to them that can help with the improving of their everyday lives. So we collaborated or decided quite a few years ago to come together and combine our again our resources, all of our efforts to create a larger impact and reach more people. When we used to be out in the community in different neighborhoods providing these workshops, but of course, due to the pandemic, we did have to come to adjust and convert to the online platform. But this has allowed us the opportunity to reach even more people throughout the city of Houston, surrounding counties, and throughout the entire state of Texas. And due to the fact that we do record the session and we do broadcast live on our social media platforms, we do have the opportunity to reach other people that are outside of the state of Texas and across the country as well. So know that the information that we do provide is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered any type of legal advice. However, if you do find yourself in need of any civil legal assistance, we do wholeheartedly encourage you to reach out to the legal service partners like Lone Star Legal Aid to apply for their, Lone Star Legal Aid, the Earl Carl Institute, and Houston Volunteer Lawyers, all of our partners in regards to applying for their assistance and their services. Because there is an application process, we want to also encourage you all to not just assume that you do not qualify for their services, that they are available to you. They are available at no charge. So again, we do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners. But today, our partner with the Earl Carr Institute will be providing you all with the information about expungement of criminal records. This is your opportunity to ask whatever questions that it is that you may have. However, we do ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can, as to not border on legal advice, and as well as due to the fact that we are recording and on social media, we want to try to protect your privacy as much as we possibly can. So we do ask that you keep your questions general in nature and not divulge any personal detailed information, and that you do reach out to Earl Carl Institute for more one-on-one services as it relates to your personal situation. So with that being said, we are going to move on into our Q&A. Our presentation, and then we go into the Q&A. If you are joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type questions that you may have into the chat, or you can wait until the end and unmute yourself and ask the questions directly of the presenter. If you are joining us on any of the social media platforms, please feel free to type your question into the chat box, into the comment section, and I will read those questions aloud at the end. I know that some of those questions were emailed to me when you all registered for the presentation, so I will make sure that all of those get read aloud or get addressed at the end as well. So we want to thank you all on behalf of the entire collaboration for joining us this afternoon. And we hope that you do find the information to be beneficial. And if it's not for your own personal situation, we do ask and encourage you to forward it along and pay it forward and share it with somebody else that may also be able to use the information that you all receive here today. So with that being said, we have Ms. Pamela Williams with the Earl Carl Institute for Legal and Social Policy, who will get us started with her introduction and her presentation. So Ms. Williams, go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for attending. I want to start off with my PowerPoint, and I'm sorry, Miss Murray.
Okay, you hit the green share on the bottom.
Yeah, it's already shared, huh? Okay. Okay.
Once you hit that button, you choose your presentation.
Yeah, it was already. I thought it was up, and I thought you put that banner on, and it was already up. So one participant, it was up.
Do you see the green button on the bottom of the Zoom screen?
I do, yes. And
okay, so click that one.
Yeah, so do you see it now?
No, not yet.
It was up. Let's see. So
Pamela, after you click share, another screen will pop up, and then you pick the screen that has your PowerPoint. And then you're going to click done or share, something like that at the bottom.
Okay, I see it. Let's see. So let me see. I think I might have closed it. All right. 1 second here. So then we're going to share it.
It's loading. There you go. And then hit from the beginning up at the top.
Okay. Here we go.
You're all good to go. We
okay.
One of our counselors would say that ain't nothing but the devil trying to keep us from getting this information out to the community. So that means it must be some good stuff you're about to tell us right now. So you go right ahead.
Well, thank you so much. And so I wanted to start off, we're talking about expunctions. And so really to begin with, expunctions were created as a means of allowing a person who was wrongfully arrested of a crime to remove traces of that from their records. And let me, because I kind of have a box here that's blocking me. Okay, so let's talk about why it's important. And I know many of us who may be on this PowerPoint understand why it's important to remove traces of arrest from records, because these limitations, it limits opportunities. We see access to records limiting opportunities in housing and schools. You know, colleges have access to records, employers oftentimes may, of course, being the main place, they'll look at those records and deny opportunities and jobs. And we know with employment rates being as they are, we really want to expunge and seal these records. And I, kind of started off just with some reality. I know we're talking about adult records, expungement, but this was from another issue where we talked about the number of children who are arrested. And really the purpose is to say that it is a lot of people being impacted with arrest rates. Juvenile arrest rates are high, and we know those limit opportunities. We talk about how Black youth 5 times more likely to be arrested. And from that, we can see that, this whole issue of records and access to records, it is perpetuating racial inequality, because we do know about racial profiling. So this is a very important reason to look at expunction of records, because many people do have records that they've been walking around with for years. And these are records where you were arrested, but you were not convicted. And so let's talk about the first requirement in order to have your records expunged, and that would be that you were arrested. And that goes for felony or misdemeanor. And I, make the distinction, because sometimes an arrest is actually where you're taken into custody, or an arrest could be non-custodial. But the point is that you're going to have some information in the system that shows that either HPD or some other agency took you into custody. The next thing we look at when we look at expunctions and eligibility for that, we're going to find that, and this is for, anyone who may want to look this up themselves. There's a code of criminal procedure in the state of Texas that governs expunctions, and expunctions are found in Chapter 55. Now, let's look at the 4 categories. Oftentimes when people come to us and they want to know if they're eligible for expunction, first of all, we actually here at the Earl Carl Institute, we like to do a actually looking an assessment. We're actually going to take a person's name, their date of birth, and put it in a system that is kind of quite handy and giving us some initial idea of whether or not that person may be eligible for expunction based upon how the computer is pulling together the records. But then the next thing we may also do is go down to Harris County's website, because as everyone knows, these district clerk websites, they're just, they contain a lot of the information regarding people's criminal records that may again be eligible for expunction because maybe under these 4 categories. So the categories are acquittal and pardons, dismissals and no bills. You have something out there where under the law, you may be entitled to an expunction because of a discretionary approval that is very narrow. And so that's why I didn't put too much about that. But if you'd like to talk, and if that's something you're concerned about, we could talk about it. But the main categories are acquittals and pardons, dismissals and no bills. Identity theft, as we know, is becoming quite high. So sometimes, let's say someone was arrested and they gave your information, and they, therefore your record now is pinged, then there may be an avenue for you to get an expunction because of that. So again, acquittals and pardons, that means you were acquitted, found not guilty before a judge or a jury. Pardon, it talks about how maybe the governor or some pardoning mechanism, actually after a person was tried, they may have been pardoned. Oftentimes people talk about, pardoning and what are the steps. I personally have never been a part of any type of proceeding that, you apply for a pardon. And I'm saying that to say is that I think they're very unique and not often, like the vehicle that we see often. Another area is actual innocence findings, which I think are coming out of some type of appellate process. Here at Earl Carl, we do have an area that deals specifically with that area of law, so I'm not going to go too much into that. The next major area is dismissals and no bills. And a dismissal is basically what it sounds like. Your case was dismissed, lack of probable cause. And so it's saying you were arrested, and that's another type of dismissal. You were arrested, but you weren't even charged with the crime. They actually never put forth the formal documentation to even charge you with a crime. So that opens up another avenue where you may be eligible for an expunction. And like I say, acquittals and pardons, you're entitled if you're acquitted or pardoned, and that does include acquittals on appeal, which means that if you, actually filed notice of appeal and had a brief, and a lawyer in one of our courts of appeals in the state actually reversed your case and, actually reversed it and acquitted the case, saying that they found that it was, no finding, no reason for, they reversed the conviction and acquitted you. And again, actual innocence is another reason. So, there are some limited, some things that you kind of have to look at. And that's what I say the best thing to do would be to call us or to apply online or our services, and we would then screen and see if you're actually eligible for the expunction. But like they say, cases are not eligible if you're convicted or still subject to prosecution for another offense out of the same criminal episode. And so sometimes you may see that maybe there was a gun case and a I don't know, vehicular homicide or something. And, in exchange for a final resolution on one case, maybe some kind of dismissal happened. If you kind of know that maybe that happened, that's going to give you reason to not expect or not just assume that your case, because it was acquittal, is eligible. So, again, you're going to have to really inquire and find out. And that goes with the felonies, multiple charges, same thing. They're all of them must meet requirements to expunge. Then you got the misdemeanors, and you can expunge individual misdemeanors. I think one of the most interesting areas of law is where we're seeing these weapons cases that, because the legislator changed the laws, 4602A, that used to make it a crime to actually recklessly carry a handgun or carrying a handgun. Well, we know that there's been some repealing. So some of those cases, if you got a conviction for a law prior to 2021, you may be eligible. I've seen some issues though where perhaps if the case involved weapons, but you also had something else, it still may pose a problem. But just to make you aware that that particular repealing of the law has opened up an avenue for maybe an expungement. So like I say, under dismissals and no bills, you have to have a situation where you don't have pending charges, you weren't convicted, and you did not do community supervision, meaning probation. Because if that's the case, you were arrested, it got dismissed, but there may have been some type of community supervision requirement that may exclude you from the expunction. So again, I think what I'm trying to say here with the dismissals and the no bills, there are times that statute of limitations have to have ran. So like, for example, if your case was dismissed yesterday, don't expect that you could maybe come right in and get it expunged. There may be some other waiting periods that apply. And those waiting periods sometimes apply if, again, the case wasn't charged and, but you were arrested, they released you, but you still may have a waiting period. So again, a lot of times with the law, it doesn't happen automatically. But one of the things I think, and so then, but the one exception, and I think we see this often, is that pretrial interventions, that's one of the, frequently used ways that cases are resolved downtown, where a pretrial intervention, which it used to be deferred adjudications or it used to be straight probation, but now pretrial interventions are pretty common. And so in those cases, you're gonna, under certain circumstances, or under the right circumstances, be eligible potentially for an expunction. And like I say, so waiting periods that apply sometimes, just to give you an idea, again, your expectations, we don't want them to, yesterday your case got dismissed, and, because there are waiting periods. Now, I just want to say, though, in this area of law, a lot of times we're seeing people who have had records for long periods of time, because oftentimes people we're happy that we have not been convicted, or that, we're through with the justice system. And so sometimes taking that extra step to say, I want to get this off my record, might be something that we delay. So a lot of the cases that need to be expunged are older cases. And so you don't have to even be concerned about a waiting period. So you definitely should explore it. But just, so there are some times that waiting periods apply. They do apply. The 3-year waiting period for felonies, misdemeanors, a year, Class C misdemeanors, 180 days. And so, don't want to get too complicated with that, but I just wanted to throw that out. And then sometimes, the reasons for dismissals for lawyers, we know this big issue about no probable cause is, it's a very complicated type of discussion, and I don't want to go into it too much. But some of the main reasons that we see quite often, again, is this pretrial intervention program, which is definitely going to make you eligible for an expunction at some point. Like I said, the probable cause is something that, we think that just because they dismissed the case, of course, they didn't have a reason to arrest me. But, sometimes the DA may want to haggle and say, no, we just did it because, the witness wasn't available or something. And they may even write that down on the paper. So that's something that we have to look at in making the determination of, is there some type of hurdle that we're going to have to overcome. And like I say, these discretionary expunctions, just, because I wanted to make the presentation complete, I put this out here where the prosecutor must recommend before a case goes to trial, but that's not really applicable to most of your day-to-day types of expunctions. Again, we're talking about acquittals, we're talking about dismissals, we're talking about pretrial interventions, or we're talking about people who were arrested and just weren't charged. And I think because we're doing adults, let me just say this, an expunction has to be filed where the offense occurred or the petitioner was arrested. For most of the time, we're going downtown to the district court. And it's very important, I think, that I kind of put this out because we know that Texas Law Help and other sites, they do have self-help packages that people can file some of this on their own if they choose not to hire a lawyer, if they choose not to even give us a call at the Earl Carl Institute. And so the effect of an expunction is that the district clerk sends the records to the agencies, the order, and those agencies then can no longer release that information. The information is actually removed from your records. And, and so I'm clear when I'm talking about agencies, I mean, like the police, potentially it could have been a DPS situation where maybe you went to the driver's license bureau to try to get your license renewed. They pulled up your record and, unfortunately there was something out there that looked like a crime, but, and they arrested you. It could have been many other agencies that are involved and that have our records. And at the effect of the expunction is to take that information, erase that information from those agencies. And it's, again, a Class B misdemeanor if the agencies do not get rid of that information, or if they release it, let me say that, after the order of expunction. Because what happens is that all of the agencies, including the Harris County District Attorney or others, the Harris County Police, they'll sign off on these orders. So therefore that makes it binding, along with the judge's signature, of course. And I did the juvenile record seal in part. I just wanted to say, I'll just breeze through it because it's, so important that our children get their records sealed, even though a child's record really is not able to, it's not the permanent record that you see in adult criminal records, but they're still there. And more, I think for certain reasons, these records also can hurt our youth. So apply to have children's records sealed as well. And this is something that we do here at Earl Carl Institute. So again, some of the rules, like, the children are at least 17, and, or if they're younger than 17, but 1 year from when they were, discharged or whatever, got the case dismissed, then that, or even just their case, they're discharged, because they don't have to just do dismissals. They are eligible for their records to be sealed. So that's the difference between a juvenile and an adult. So yeah, and just again, some specifics. So I just wanted to, part of this presentation I've done before is that I like to give out the information for Texas Law Help, because they are an online source that gives people some help in assessing these things for themselves, and even giving some information on how perhaps you can get it done. So with that, I think that's pretty much wrapping up my presentation. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you.
Go right ahead. Yes, ma'am.
So the information that you're presenting here, this is strictly related to the state of Texas, or is this like a federal process, or is this just related to state criminal charges, or what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So yeah, it is actually a state by state law. So as we are lawyers working in the state of Texas, we are giving Texas law as to eligibility requirements and process. And it is actually a state by state process. Some states have eligibility that are much broader, than the state of Texas. And some may have laws that are, different. So no, it's definitely a state by state eligibility and legal process.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
I wanted to know, my case it's an old case, and I have like
Okay, before you go any further, let me say, keep it general. Don't specifically say you and your case and things of that nature. Public platform, and we want to try to keep your stuff private. So keep it general. So what if somebody had a case like, and then go from there or something, you know what I mean?
well, I'm trying to get my record expunged, and I've been going through it for a long time, and I just wanted, how can I get it expunged?
Okay. So I can, I don't know how we're going to send out the website, but I can definitely give you a link so you can apply for services with the Earl Carl Institute, because we have a project called the Clean Slate Initiative. And under that project, we actually do record clearing services for eligible applicants, and it's absolutely free. So
Okay.
we would definitely love to, interact with you, and hopefully we would, be able to give you some feedback or assist you.
Is that under the Innocence Project page, or which page? Or
Right. And so if you go to the Earl Carl Institute, Miss Murray, because you can help me on this now, sharing screens, but if you go to our website and pull up the actual page, then on that page, you see a link. And that link is where they can actually, click on the link, and the application is going to come up, and it's very, kind of self-explanatory, the application itself.
Okay, let me make sure I'm going to the right thing, because I'm going to put the link in the chat as well.
Right. Thank you so much for that.
So it's this, right?
Yes, that's it. And if you click on, I think the apply for legal services.
Where would that be?
look at the box on, I believe, the right here. The box, you may have gone, yeah, click on apply. Right next to Innocence Project. Yeah, right here. Okay. So actually now, if you see in the first paragraph, that second sentence says, click here or go to. And so that is actually, yeah, click here or go to Earl Carl link. Yeah, that's it. That is it.
Okay.
And so
I'm going to
that's
put this in the chat here.
thank you so much for your help.
Um, and
Institutional
then
legal services.
if it's in the link right there, so if you click on it, you can go right to the page. But also know that again, the session is being recorded, and I'm going to send out the link and resources and things that she mentioned, so that you guys can get it directly in your email as well. Was there another question, Mr. Johnson?
No, ma'am. That's pretty much. She kind of helped me out right there because, like I said, I've been looking for this, and a family member had asked me yesterday, was I real serious about it? And I told her that I'm very serious. I really need this done.
Yes,
Yeah, a lot of times folks don't really realize how this kind of follows you, even just a simple arrest record, not even being convicted, but just even the arrest. At one point, I know when we were talking about even in our evictions presentation, wasn't there some kind of discussion or something as far as how back somebody could look when they do background checks, as far as people like trying to apply for different apartments and things of that nature for folks that have 20 years ago, an arrest record from 20 years ago, that like an apartment complex can still hold that against them from their background. Wasn't there supposed to be some kind of discussion about legislation or something trying to cap that, or that look back period being cut down to a certain period of time?
yeah. Now, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I just know that people are too much information being exposed about a person, can be looked at, and people can conclude, and and just seeing that a person has been arrested sometimes may be used by the person who's making the decision in a way
Mhm.
that is just not favorable. And then we just want these records. It helps to get these records expunged.
Okay. Another question that came in here: what do you do if a mugshot has been published online on some place like on Facebook? How does somebody go about getting that kinds of stuff taken down?
Yeah, now that is not something that I can legally talk about, except to maybe the extent that if some of these Facebook postings are actually coming out of the actual law enforcement's records, then with the expungement, then the records of law enforcement would actually be fair game to say, hey, and take it down from here and here and here and here. That would cause, that would probably require you to, whoever is asking the question may know or may have seen something such as that. So make sure, you keep evidence that, hey, this is here. Because once the expungement order goes into impact, you want to then take that order once it's final and potentially reach out then and say, look, I got an order over here. You see what I'm saying? Because I think the nature of social media is that something could be out there. It could be a new posting, or it could be something that was posted a while ago and it's just still floating on the internet. So can you say to that law enforcement, once you get this order, you got to go scrub the internet? No, you may have to make sure you scrub be aware and hook that expunction order to what you're seeing that is, perhaps violating. And I don't know any penalties or anything assessed with that.
Are there other agencies or that you would have to go through to do that, or is it up to you to request from like a sheriff's department, the attorney general's office, or whomever, to then do it wherever, clean it wherever that they've posted it or made the information available? Or do you literally have to go through and search different agencies or locations and things like that to try to figure out where your record could be posted to try to get it taken down or removed?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I've never had that particular situation occur. But again, I think that if you keep that posting, and let's say it is coming directly from a sheriff's department, then, making sure that that sheriff's department is listed on that expunction order, that's at least your first line of defense. And, to try to cover it, and then going about making sure that they're doing their job. I don't know what steps to take, but reaching out to them after you have an expunction order probably wouldn't hurt. Yeah.
How long generally do you have to wait after you've come off probation? Because I've got a question here that says, I have paperwork for my termination of my adult probation, and my lawyer avoided me for months and then stated that I have to wait 5 years or so from January 2024 to ask for expungement. I have an engineering degree that I cannot use and would love to be able to know how I can go about getting it expunged before 5 years.
Yeah, so I'm a little let me say this. So it's my understanding that expunctions apply to cases that were dismissed, acquitted, pretrial intervention, and that community supervision. So because the person keeps using the word probation, I don't think expunctions and probations, I don't think they apply. Probation, the regular probation. Now, there is deferred adjudication, and deferred adjudication is a different subject that I'm not prepared to discuss today. But I will say that there is a vehicle for sealing deferred adjudication, and that's called non-disclosure. And that has kind of a set of rules that are, they're very a little bit intricate, but there is a way to get a deferred adjudication probation. And I won't say all of them fall under the category, but many of them and most of them may be eligible for a petition for non-disclosure. And so perhaps that's what the gentleman is talking about. But a regular probation is not, to my knowledge, eligible for expunction and even non-disclosure.
Can you kind of give some examples of criminal acts or something that are not eligible for expunctions, like, or criminal charges, so that people know they won't go through this whole process and then find out, oh, well, this kind of arrest record can't be, you know what I mean? To keep people from having even to go through that whole process, if they knew from the beginning what kind of criminal charges cannot be expunged, or are there certain types of criminal charges that cannot be expunged?
Right. And so, as I said in the presentation, arrests and charges that did not result in convictions, and that's your first threshold. If you got a case and you didn't get convicted, then you're pretty much should seek further counsel on whether or not you can get that case expunged. The majority of the cases that don't result in convictions, you can get them expunged. But if there are cases that potentially, like I say, maybe you were doing you were accused of committing this offense and that offense at the same, time, they call it a criminal episode, there may be some limitations on that. Or if there are, and I think the main question is about when can you get it expunged? can you get it expunged? Has your statute of limitation ran or your waiting period runs? And just to, just to read it from the book, it says, finally, regardless of whether an indictment or information was filed or not, a person may obtain an expunction if the statute of limitation has expired. And so, that's pretty much the major issue. Has the statute of limitations expired?
Okay. Trying to watch social media here to see if I've got other questions. Is it possible to expunge an assault misdemeanor conviction? Are we talking about only felony convictions, or can misdemeanors also be expunged? Misdemeanor charges.
Yeah, charges. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, misdemeanor and felonies. Are we talking about?
Yes, definitely misdemeanor and
misdemeanors and felonies. Okay. There's another one here. I'm going to send you this one offline because this one talks about this person being a registered offender from the age of 18 who is now 37. I don't want to go into that much detail about this person's personal issue here. Misdemeanor related to. Can you speak to expungement as it relates to renewing of state licenses and one that was not indicted and charges were also, well, dismissed? You've already done that. So if somebody is applying for a state license, like a nursing license, real estate license, something along those lines, how does an arrest record impact that?
Well, I can't give a general answer to, like, every agency is different. And so, that's something that you definitely want to inquire to your specific licensing agency and find out what their rules are. But, many times people are trying to get things expunged for that very reason. So I'm sure it would be helpful to get, but you got to go to your particular licensing agency and find out what their rules are.
Okay.
But the expungement would, surely go a long way, I'm sure.
If I could jump in, if you don't mind.
I was just about to say what you wrote in here, but go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say on that issue, there are certain types of criminal charges that government agencies are still going to be able to see.
Okay.
So it may be, for example, maybe you're trying to do a child care and you have a abuse record or something. It doesn't necessarily well, I'll go back to what Attorney Williams said. You need to check with each agency, but it may not be just as simple as not having a criminal record. It may depend on the type of record or the underlying charge.
Okay. Is there a list somewhere of different agencies that someone would have to contact to get their record expunged? That was a private message that I just got.
I don't know what that, I'm not familiar with that. Okay. I mean, because again, the process for expungement is to look at the eligibility on how was your case handled. And if your case is eligible to be expunged, then you don't have to ask the agency to expunge your record. But I think, as Dr. Guidry alluded to, in some instances that may not help with that particular agency because they still are going to hold it against you. Yeah.
From beginning to end, how long, if someone is eligible for a record expungement, how long does that process actually take?
You know what, I would say potentially 6 months to a year, maybe more, no more than 2 years. It just depends on the abilities of the resources of the agency and how the district attorney's office is going to view your case. And so yeah, that's what I would say.
And do you have to make application or something or apply for, if you've got multiple charges, say again, like the gentleman in his 30s that committed crimes when he was 18, do you have to apply for each individual charge to have it expunged, or is it just like a blanket kind of, I want to have my entire record or background expunged?
And that's a great question. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Because actually the answer to it is you can get them all, it is the one package. You can get them all done that are eligible. However, as you said, you got to actually intricately list out and give all the information for each and every offense separately, but you can do it in the same time.
Okay.
Same application, as you're saying, petition.
A petition. I knew it was a word. I couldn't remember. Petition.
Because these are actually lawsuits. You're filing a lawsuit into civil court in Harris County. For I'm just going to use them because that's where we see a lot of the cases. And so they're actually they actually are lawsuits, and they're actually kind of like served like a lawsuit, and everybody gets a chance to say things about your application, and if it, and that's how that process moves. So yeah, but all the different, if you've had other offenses, they can be combined in the same petition.
Someone asked, is this the same as surety? I think it's surety misdemeanor cases. Am I saying that correctly? The person that asked the question, is this the same as a surety misdemeanor case?
I'm not familiar with what.
If you could come off of mute to verify it or to explain, that would be helpful, because I don't want to not ask your question.
Yes, if it is just a surety PR bond misdemeanor. Like, you're going to show up, you're going to pay this fine, and it's going to all be done because you've never done anything before.
So is that eligible for expunction?
Well, I guess I don't, you know what, you're going to really, we'd have to run that, because if you're saying that, was it a conviction? Was it a dismissal? Was it charged as a, some other type of crime, that maybe it was under the class of potentially, the theft area, the fraud area, or something like that. So you really have to be the question is, did it get dismissed?
I know you only touched on for a hot second about deferred adjudication. What can you say to people when because I've heard multiple times people say, oh, well, that was deferred adjudication, so now I don't have a record. What exactly does deferred adjudication mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So deferred adjudication is the deferral of a finding of guilt. And so, they defer it. They take a plea and they say, we're not going to enter the finding of guilt conviction. We're going to defer it until you've done what you're supposed to do, which is the probation and the requirements of the probation. But what we found happening, because, of course, I was kind of a young lawyer seeing defers, and it's like, yeah, this is, they're not finding the guilt. But then the next thing is that they're finding that you're on deferred, because it sits right there, plain as day, that you are on deferred adjudication. And then what you saw subsequently was applications, began to ask you, have you been convicted or put on deferred? And so then that again limits the effectiveness of the deferred when it comes to the privacy issue. Sometimes deferred might be good when it comes to avoiding jail, so still, can be helpful. And it does keep you from saying that you've been convicted, but it's still there.
And most deferred cases do not qualify for expunction, but they may qualify for non-disclosures, which is another way of clearing your criminal record. But just in general, you have to take a detailed look if it's deferred or if it's an actual conviction.
Yeah.
I
And like, go ahead.
I just wanted to just kind of touch on that because I've heard that quite a bit. Where people will think when they go into deferred adjudication, that means that they don't have a charge or they don't have a conviction or anything like that because it was deferred, or they just assumed that it wasn't. So I want to put that out there for people to know that too.
Yeah. And so, again, I don't want to say the replacement, but the legislators, the lawmakers, better option that was introduced, after deferred did trap people. So, well, did give the showing that there was something out there, is the pretrial intervention. And so the pretrial intervention is where there's actually no deferral of anything. It ends up resulting in a dismissal. And, again, now we're seeing, of course, the dismissal sheet, the judge, the prosecutor might write on their PTI, which means that you successfully did your pretrial intervention, but at least there's no finding, there's no extra piece of paper that shows the terms and conditions of the probation and that you may see in a deferred adjudication setting.
Okay.
And those have become very, very useful.
Even if it was over 20 plus years ago?
So you mean in terms of expunctions for people over 20? Yeah. I mean, again, that's what we see often are people who have had records for that length of time. So absolutely, people should apply to make sure they're eligible.
Okay. All right. Okay, she says thanks. Let me make sure I don't have anything else. Are there any other questions of any of the participants that you all may have? So I was trying to kind of go through everything and make sure that I got everything addressed. I don't want to leave anybody out that may have had some additional questions or needed some additional guidance of where to go and what to do. And I'm just double checking again social media pages to make sure, because I don't want to not address. So I believe that is it. And this one says, what about misdemeanor marijuana possession charges?
Yeah, and that's a good point. So again, the charges, misdemeanor marijuana, for sure, there definitely is if it was dismissed, then, that is something that you would want to check your eligibility for sure. Yeah. And actually, and I think it made something kind of pop in my head, and it's not on an expunction, but we've actually seen on the conversation that's for another time that even some of those small misdemeanor marijuana cases that may have stood alone in your life, in your childhood, that you were actually convicted of, may actually be eligible for non-disclosure. And so that's a real breakthrough, because we're talking about, we're talking about some leeway for some cases that actually got a conviction. But those is a very tiny group of cases. It's not expunction, but it's that other type of record sealing that is a non-disclosure. So may want to check in on that.
Can you touch on that? Like, what's the difference there and which one is better? Is it better to have it expunged or sealed?
Well, of course, you would want to have your case expunged, but expunction is narrowed only to cases that have been dismissed or acquitted, dismissals. And so with the other area that you may be eligible for is if you had the deferred adjudication. And so with the deferred adjudication, that was the other hope, that you could come back maybe, and if you successfully completed that deferred and other areas are met, certain terms and conditions that have to apply with a deferred, then perhaps you might be able to get that sealed. A dismissal is that you just walked out the court. Your case just got dismissed. There was a no bill. They didn't even, and we know though for, I want to say sometimes communities of color, it's not so impossible that you may have got arrested for something and it was totally later dismissed. So that's a large area of cases, but non-disclosures are for people who actually took a deal and got a deferred adjudication, and then there may be something that they can, get their case non-disclosed, meaning it's sealed. And there's some, like I say, there are some specifications that have to go along with that. But I just brought up because somebody asked about marijuana, and, I just became familiar with the fact that some small, low-level marijuana cases that are old and under certain criteria may be eligible for a non-disclosure, even if the person got convicted. I mean, and we're talking about low-level, marijuana possession, but, you just never know, because we're talking about somebody, who you're a child, maybe now you're doing huge things, or you just someone who's never had another offense in your life. You just got caught with a joint and you took a plea. And so maybe that could be non-disclosed under certain, get that off your record. Because we do live in a time when any record can be interpreted negatively against the people if that's what, is intended.
And how long will it take for a non-disclosure after probation is completed?
And again, and so that's where the limitation of this particular talk is going to have to, I can't give the answer because I have to, I have to review it and be able to give the specificity.
What did you want to know?
What rate to sell the chicken?
But again, apply at our website, and we could definitely, we would be able to assess and give you the feedback regarding whether or not a case is eligible for either an expunction or a non-disclosure.
Miss Cynthia, you unmuted. Was there another question that you had?
I know it wasn't. I apologize. I did not mean to unmute.
That's okay. We want chicken too. I heard her in the background.
They said they want chicken too. Sorry. Unmute me, please. Oh, sorry.
All right. My other question is that when someone wants to file a petition for an expungement or expunging your record, do you have to go through an attorney to do that, or is this something that somebody could do on their own, or where do they go to do that?
Right. And yeah, great question. And so in our presentation, I just cited Texas Law Help. Texas Law Help is a website in Texas, and definitely it's, kind of specific for the Harris County and some of the surrounding counties. And it gives a lot of information on how people can represent themselves and do what we call pro se work, where you have access to the courts. You don't have to have a lawyer to do things in court. And Texas Law Help, I would definitely recommend them as a great guide if that's, what a person's looking for.
Okay, so it's possible. They don't necessarily have to get an attorney.
Yes.
It's recommended, especially if you've got somebody like Earl Cole that can potentially help you for free. So yeah, I would definitely try not to go about that route. But I did put the link for Texas Law Help for the expunctions prep guide in the chat, and I'll include that in the email as well for you all when I send this out. I do believe that is all that I have. I'm again been trying to, and forgive me if I'm trying to look at all these platforms at the same time and answer all questions. So if I did not get to your answer of your question and I did not see it, please feel free to email it to me so that I can make sure that it gets to the Earl Carl Institute so that they can address that for you guys. So and I will again also be including the link to apply for the services for Earl Carl Institute. And I know you only touched briefly, but do you want to tell folks the other services that are available at Earl Carl too, in case there's something else, because there may be something more than just record expunctions that you guys could potentially assist with?
And so, Dr. Guidry, did you want to chime in, or I can go off my, I do know that here at the Earl Carl Institute, we have several social justice areas that we serve the population in the areas of airship property. There's some, we have an excellent clinic that helps people in the areas of probate, some areas of airship. We also have a naturalization clinic that deals with people who are seeking to become American citizens. Here, I also am a part of the Juvenile Justice Initiative, and that's really near and dear to my heart because the Juvenile Justice Initiative, we give free legal services to youth who are in court in the present or in school disciplinary issues where they may or need assistance with suspension, expulsion, and again, if they're in juvenile court, we give them offer services that can provide them with legal representation, right now. So those are some of the programs that we have. And I don't know if Dr. Guidry if she's able, if I forgot any, because I would need to go get a flyer, but but I think go right ahead, Dr. Guidry.
Did you mention the Innocence Project?
Oh yeah, the Innocence Project. Right.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
We operate the Innocence Project for the university here at TSU. And we help to investigate cases where people allege that they're actually innocent because either the crime never happened or someone else committed the crime and we now have new evidence to prove it. And often that used to be DNA, but now it may be just that you were convicted with junk science that's been proven to be faulty science. There were a whole slew of hair fiber cases at one time. And just to go back to, so we investigate and litigate those. It's a long process, anywhere from 5 to 13 years, if we're actually able to bring a case. But I want to go back to the property project. And in that project, basically what we do is everything and anything that's necessary to help people to either obtain their home or maintain their home. So I'll start with maintaining their home. We do foreclosure defense, and that's where the ASH project comes in. We have people living in mom's home or grandma's home, and oftentimes they don't get title to the property cleared. Even if they keep it in the family, they don't get it cleared, and they end up coming to us when they're in tax court. So we can do things with people to get everybody's interest correct on the title so that they can make payment arrangements and things like that before the property actually goes into the foreclosure process. Also maintaining your house is eviction defense. So if there's a issue other than non-payment of rent, we help people with eviction defense to get their deposits back so they can go into new housing. And then to obtain real property, it's probate, but also here in Houston, we see a lot of times, and I was surprised by this, is adverse possession or people claiming property by squatters' rights. And we've actually gotten people homes that they've been living in, but didn't have title to, and they claimed squatters' rights, and we were able to get them tax exemptions, and they will have the opportunity to apply for repair programs and things like that. So, please go and take a look at our website, all our programs on there under Earl Carl Inc. Apply-for-help. And I know Nia's going to share that with everybody. But if you have any questions, whether or not we can help you, give us a call.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, again, I wanted them to kind of touch base on some of the other services that are available, just to let you guys know that there are resources that are out there regarding whatever particular situation that you may have. There are resources that are available that can assist you guys with whatever it is that you may be having an issue with or need some legal assistance with getting done. And that's kind of the whole point of the partnership, to try to get as much information out there and distribute it to the community as we possibly can. So on behalf of the A Month of Service Partnership, we thank the Earl Carl Institute for providing this information for us today. Thank you all for your participation and for joining in. I will be sending out also the calendar for the remainder of the month's presentations that we have that are coming up. What do we have? Matter of fact, I think we have a clear and title presentation that's coming up on Thursday. Yep, we actually do have a clear and title presentation that's coming up on Thursday, and evictions this month, and also maintaining and adding value to your home. But again, I'll send that calendar out to you guys so that you can all see what other services are available. There is a link that pops up on the screen. If you guys could kind of give us your feedback from that survey to kind of let us know what you think of the presentation for today. Are there other workshops, or are there other services or information that you all may need information about that may be impacting your family, impacting your community? Please let us know. We will be in the next few weeks to come planning our 2025 schedule for the year. So we want to try to figure out what other types of presentations that we can provide to you all. So please give us your input. That would be great if we could hear from you guys. So Ms. Williams, Ms. Guidry, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
All have a wonderful remainder of your afternoon. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we hope to see you all at a future presentation.